This broadcast of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series is brought to you by Malois Transport and AssurAction Transport Expert. For oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec, visit www.malois-transport.ca. And for an expert and professional trucking insurance firm specializing in property and casualty insurance solutions for freight across Quebec, Canada, and the United States, visit www.transportexpert.com. Welcome, race fans, to round 3 of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, powered by Malois Transport and AssurAction Transport Expert, and live exclusively here on TRTN. You join us in searingly hot conditions here in the largest racing venue in Japan, the Suzuka International Racing Course. Designed by John Hugenholtz at the request of Soichiro Honda, the same visionary behind the Honda Motor Company, and constructed in the early 1960s, opening in September of 1962, some 63 years ago. Suzuka was birthed on the ambition for a permanent circuit in the Mie Prefecture and to transform Japan's presence on the world stage of motorsports post-war. The first event to be called the Japanese Grand Prix was held in May of 1963, but unlike the name would suggest, the Japanese Grand Prix was in fact a sports car race and would run at Suzuka until 1965. Oddly still, as by that point, the Formula 1 classification of Grand Prix race car had existed for 15 years. Another Japanese track would emerge though in 1965, the newly opened Fuji Speedway, and that would steal the event away for 8 consecutive years. The punch then was seldom softened, as in 1976 Fuji would become the first venue for the Formula 1 Japanese Grand Prix, the iconic title-deciding fight between James Hunt and Niki Lauda. Suzuka would not get its chance to hold the Japanese Grand Prix for Formula 1 until 1985, where construction efforts stifled their chances to host, delaying their entry to 1987. From this point onwards, however, Suzuka became the de facto home of the Japanese Grand Prix, only briefly swapping hands with Fuji after redevelopment efforts in the early 2000s. Following the global financial crisis of 2009, however, Suzuka reclaimed total control of the Japanese Grand Prix. Outside of its story of rivalry for rights to Formula 1 with the younger Fuji Speedway, Suzuka holds races for rounds of Super GT, Super Formula, Intercontinental GT Challenge, FIM Endurance World Challenge, and even a delightfully Japanese local discipline, the Honda N1 Owners' Cup, a single-make series for owners of the Honda N1K car, first introduced to public market in Japan in 2012. Today, however, it hosts the third round of the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series on CPL, and back into the standard 60-minute format. Taking a look at the regulations coming into today's event, we're back to basics here. 20-minute qualifying up ahead from today's free practice session, and a 60-minute race with one mandatory pit stop, including fuel and tyres. One new driver for today, that's according to SimGrid, the number 72 of Filippo Cataneo with Mercedes, and 3 transfers after round 2, race 2 concluded last week at the Alton Park circuit. That's for Giovanni Badiali, Richard Cecil and Liam Bello. Badiali leaving BMW for Mercedes, Cecil leaving Alpine for Aston Martin, and Bello leaving Chevrolet for Mercedes also. It brings the total number of signed Mercedes cars up to a staggering 10. That's half the current signed up grid are using the AMG GT, and it's really not hard to see where the benefits come from. Having a look at today though is a different story entirely. They'll be gaining 15 kilos coming into today's round of the championship. Porsche finding themselves yet again on the short end of the stick with 37 kilos on the 718 Cayman. For Chevrolet, it's still a result of middling affairs here. Very little gain or loss in the grand scheme of things as they find themselves the balancing act here between the law of extremes on either side. Then into the very high weight reduction limits here for McLaren and Aston Martin. 20 and 17 kilos lost from the British machines coming into today's round of the championship. As we stay on board here with Liam Bello, who's one such driver to have recently made the leap over to the court of AMG. We see him making his way down through the Degner curves, currently provisionally second fastest, as times are still yet to roll in today. Having a look on board though around the grid as we see a few new faces and a remarkable little livery indeed there for Mr. Anthony Valoria. Now, we're used to seeing the more bright yellow, almost high-vis colours, if you can make the argument, but that is a It's almost a very cherry blossom or sakura pink, maybe fitting with the theme here today, but very, very nice nonetheless. If we try and catch on board here with a man leading the championship as we get on to the discussion of the championship standings. Now, reviewing the last couple of races in this championship, 3 on the board after Alton Park last week, the status quo set in stone by the 119 of Christian Lebay remains unchanged. The Canadian going for a hat-trick of wins after race 2 of round 2. The question therein remains is for how long could fans expect Lebay to remain so dominant? As is ever the story in motorsports, domination never lasts, and with the grid getting closer and closer in qualifying predictions with each passing round, what will it take to usurp the throne? Getting a look at the championship standings here as we stay on board with Lebay on his way out through the spoon curve. We find it's a 24-point gap up front between Lebay and Villorio. You can fit 2nd through 6th in a very similar gap here. In 3rd place at the moment, Byron Forrest, moving up the standings after Alton Park. He finds himself with 69 points ahead of Carl Martel by only 2. He has 67 points in 4th place. Giovanni Badiali drops from 2nd to 5th with 62 points. Timo de Tosto with 58 points finds himself in 6th position. Richard Cecil now debuting for Aston Martin 7th with 51 points. Joint 8th between Liam Bello and Kevin Quain with 42 points apiece. And David Tangwe, after his debut at Alton Park, gave 2 rounds in and is now 10th in the championship with 39 points in the championship. We stay on board here with Lebay already setting that fastest time of free practice, now 13 minutes against the clock here, so we can get nice and acclimatized with the way things go here in Suzuka. It's a fantastic circuit, I'd say highly underutilized in the world of ACC leagues, and it's a fantastic pleasure of ours then to be coming to you again from the land of the rising sun. But never would I have thought we'd seen such extreme conditions in regards to heat today. A searing 37-degree track temperature. That is mind-bogglingly hot, especially for a country best renowned for its tropical typhoon seasons as Japan. Normally, we are quite accustomed to seeing quite torrential, almost biblical levels of downpour, as we saw was the case towards the very trailing end of one of the more notable rounds to have been held out of Suzuka. That was the Console Endurance Series round at Suzuka. That was all the way down to the wire between MSA and Exclusive. One of the best talks of TRTN history, I would definitely say. It was such a pleasure to see that kind of performance. Now we get to see a broadly different market here. We're outside of the confines of NLRL. We're into the world of Competizione Performance League proper. And what a grid we have then to bring us back to the Suzuka circuit. You can see, despite that negligible change in balance of performance striking the court of Chevrolet for the 3rd week running now since the season premiere at Laguna Seca, it has done very little to deter the confident stride here of Christian Lebay, a man completely lasered in on the task at hand. He is not looking to let any results slip through his fingers. His worst result this season has been 1st place, so that really does let you know where the benchmark is being set for the 119's performance coming in to round 3 of the championship. He's done 3 races already, a single and a double stint, and he has not let any compromise in through the cracks here. He has not relinquished command at the front of that field for even a second over the course of the championship thus far. Very early on though, still taking a look back into the championship order here for the calendar of season 1. We're here in Suzuka right now on September 2nd. We'll be at Donington for another double sprint round next week, same time for round 4 of the championship as we hit the season midway. I really don't see this being a case where Lebay slows down on his own volition. It's going to take something seriously unexpected to take that Chevy out of commission. Could it be today's incredibly hot track temperatures? They are not going to be very nice to the Chevrolet. We know that tyre degradation on the Chevrolets isn't the best for GT4, but it seems to be a pretty universal experience across category. All of them degrade tyres way worse off than their GT3 counterparts, so it seems. The Chevy just being only noticeably ahead on that remark. So if we try and catch on board with the driver here making their way down towards the final set of corners, let's actually catch on board with the driver we noted earlier. As we just check in there with the pits, we could see the 2 Mercedes cars of Badiali and Gaudreau. We want to try and catch on board. Let's see, from the brand new cherry blossom livery for the 41 of Anthony Villorio. He'll be our tour guide then for the Suzuka circuit with any hopes. So staying on board with Villorio out through the Casio Triangle then on our way to the start-finish line. One of the DRS zones in the Japanese Grand Prix in the modern day for Formula 1, which has since been relocated on the calendar as of 2026. So down towards what is ironically turns 1 and 2, but denoted as the first curve. this parabolic open hairpin right, then giving rise to what is the east section of the track, used in the 1996 and 1997 NASCAR Thunder exhibition events. Now, out through the S's, turns 3 through 7 all mark that first sector of the track. Now, it's quite the roller coaster ride for the GT3s, now with a lot more mechanical grip at play here compared to aero grip. The GT4s are going to have just equally that kind of a thrill. Out through turn 7 at the Dunlop curve, into one of the most infamous sections of the Suzuka International Racing Course, the Degner curves here at turns 8 and 9. Now, the GT4s have got the advantage by not coming into these corners anywhere near as fast as the GT3 counterparts or even the GT500s of the Super GT Championship, so they get a little bit more of a tolerable and manageable tackle of those two corners. Out through turns 9 and 10 then. Round turn 11 we go at the hairpin. Up towards turn 12, still on board with Valorio, and he's making very, very good time here on his way out through turn 12. This long sweeping right-hander takes us into another iconic section of the Suzuka International Racing Course, down to turns 13 and 14 at the Spoon Curve. We saw the fate of a long endurance race decided at this very section of the track back during the time of the Console Endurance Series, which I am happy to announce has been confirmed and production is underway. An announcement will be coming hopefully by the end of this week as to when you could expect to see the return of that fantastic championship. And so I'm told our friends here at the Competizione Performance League, namely a lot of the Malois racing team guys we see on track at the moment, are scheduled to be joining the ranks for Season 2 of the Console Endurance Series. A bit of a shake there through 130R by Anthony Valorio. Of course, we saw that iconic move between Schumacher and Alonso. Alonso sweeping across the nose of Schumacher at the Japanese Grand Prix. One of the most iconic scenes in Formula 1 happened at that very corner. Out through the Casio triangle, then down towards the line. A bit of a shaky third sector for Valorio. Nonetheless, though, gives us a very good understanding of what to expect for the road ahead here at Suzuka. Well, I must say, again, kind of gushing over the livery design here. It's just very well fitting with the track at hand. See down towards the line as well, the number 39, if we can catch on board here with Alex Albert. Actually, no, that's the 39. No, that's the 36 I was thinking of. So that's Christophe Dupois, my mistake there. The 39 down towards the line there at 2:17.805 was his last lap, provisionally in 15th. 7 minutes left to go then in free practice. Is John Prine out through the Casio triangle. Chevrolet used to be the most popular manufacturer on the grid, and with 8 cars, including the most recent signing of Clinton Bourne through Alton Park last week, they still find themselves dwarfed by Mercedes for popularity. The numbers of it just don't add up anymore. Prying across the line then on meandering results at 2:25.872, something clearly awry with the 22 over the course of that last lap. Karl Martel, who took double podiums in Alton Park, just makes his way up through the S's in the 99. His last lap at 2:13.882. Best lap was a 2:13.640. Qualifying is really going to be a bit of a quick draw for these drivers today with those incredibly hot track conditions, giving your tyres really on quali trim, realistically only about 2 to 3 laps of proper use before your goose is proverbially cooked. Out through the Degners, you can see exactly what I'm talking about here. When the tyres get hot, it is very, very hard to cool them down, especially with the track being this hot. We could expect a little bit of derby antics down towards turn 1 come race time. Now, of course, race control has already advised drivers to practice increased caution down into turn 1, just playing against the conditions of today, knowing tyres are not going to be performing anywhere near to spec. The drivers are definitely going to have to adapt the way they navigate here at Suzuka. And really, it couldn't have been a worse track to have a hot track surface at, because it is a very, very technical one indeed here at Suzuka. Make no mistake of that. 18 curves. And in its modern layout at the moment, it's 5.8 kilometers, about 3.6 miles of FIA Grade 1. It's in fact now, according to 2025 census records, the only FIA Grade 1 circuit to have a Figure 8 design. The other would have been the Circuit Fiorano, but it was decommissioned from FIA Grade 1 status and downgraded to Grade 2 in 2024, meaning this is the only of its kind left, and Suzuka's incredibly unique design has definitely caught it at the center of attention the world over for the de facto Japanese track. Funnily enough, fun fact, this is not the only circuit that is owned and operated by the Honda Motor Company. The other, in fact, is the Twin Ring Motegi, which also holds round at the Super GT and Super Formula Championships. As we see Karl Martel into the pits here, catching on board with the next driver to the line, the number 22 of John Prine. If we can catch him just before the line here, Across the line he goes. And right about now there, 2:14.437. So bear that in mind over the course of qualifying. A very, very late run to the timing lines is going to make things a bit of a faff, as it were, for qualifying. That puts him provisionally 13th fastest. 4.5 minutes left to go then before the start of our 20 minutes of qualifying. You can see actually Clinton Bourne making his way out, and there is another driver in that paddock we do want to talk about, as having signed up 2 weeks ago but yet to have made his appearance today was... we'll get on to the subject of that in a moment. Just we see here Clinton Bourne down towards the line, and again, it's something we pointed out back in Alton Park. It is a striking set of colours there. A simple livery, yes, but the colours do a lot of the heavy lifting there. That bright, vivid green stands out quite clearly amongst the ranks here. And speaking of good liveries, we see Valorio now absolute nose to tail here with Gabriel Gaudreau down towards 130R. Couldn't make the move stick there. These two sparring at the very end of free practice, getting a little bit elbows out, giving us a taste of what's to come here at the Suzuka International Racing Course. Cut away from them as things get a little bit hairy, but we want to try and check in here first of all with the Aston Martin of David Tanguay, because this is technically his second round but his third race here in the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, and already having made his way to 10th in the championship. Now, looking back at the results that he was able to pick up in Alton Park, it was definitely a bit of a law of extremes here, because despite being 10th in the championship, he finished 2nd in his first race, but then 12th in his second race. So definitely a lot to take home out of the results of Alton Park. Tanguay will be gunning for another podium at the very worst of it today. And you can see with the times he's already laying in, he's up and ahead of Lebay, a 2:11.715 by the Aston Martin. Definitely leaves a lot to be desired out of Chevrolet, but it does leave a very hopeful taste in the mouth of David Tanguay as to his hopes of pole position today. More on that discussion in about 3 minutes' time when we kick off qualifying. And the qualifying predictions, must I say, are looking incredibly juicy. A lot to pick apart coming into today's qualifying session. The other driver I want to discuss currently resides inside the pit lane. Now, he did sign up for the first round of the championship, but this is the first we get to see of Fabiano Bartoletti, the number 26 Aston Martin, that yellow Aston, just tucked in amongst there. You can see Carl Martel and Byron Forrest there flanking either sides of that Aston Martin right towards the end here of free practice. He's waited quite some time here. Better late than never, though, for the Brazilian, and we'll see what he's capable of in his first qualifying session of the season in about 2 minutes' time. See Gabriel Gaudreau again kept company by Anthony Valorio. These two are definitely sparring here. One would have rolled over for the other, or one would have backed off, so they are appreciating each other's company right at the very end of free practice, giving each other a little bit of practice before the end of today's session. Gearing each other up then for what is going to be a very exciting 60-minute race ahead of us, back into those standard regulations as mentioned before. Right before the end of free practice then, with about 1.5 minutes left to go, let's quickly discuss then the articles of news today. And the first bit of news comes out of the world of rallying. Lancia has been spotted testing a brand new Rally 2 project. Now, we know that Lancia was using their Ypsilon hatchback in Rally 4 in the European Rally Championship, but what we did not know is that they were making the leap all the way up to the penultimate top-end class of World Rally, Rally 2. Originally, speculations had it when the car was still in spy shot that Lancia was gunning for Rally 1, a preposterous claim, especially given that they are borrowing technology from Peugeot and Citroën to develop the Ypsilon. But what we are seeing right now has been confirmed as legitimate footage from Italy, that Lancia have been testing a brand new Rally 2 car. Now, the footage has surfaced on YouTube as well as all over social media, though no official announcement exists at this time. But it seems more clear than ever that Lancia's endeavours to get back into rallying proper are clear and defined. The Stellantis group have yet to make an official statement, but do expect one very, very soon now that light has been shed on the matter. The other bit of news comes from the British Touring Car Championships. Tom Chilton, Dan Camis and Tom Ingram winning Donington last weekend. And of course, capping off last weekend's racing endeavours was the Formula 1 Dutch Grand Prix, won by Oscar Piastri, much to the chagrin of his teammate Lando Norris, who suffered a technical failure leading to a DNF. It was also a rough day for Ferrari, both Hamilton and Leclerc out of the Dutch Grand Prix, but Isaac Hadjar definitely revelled in a great moment, taking his first Formula 1 podium with Visa Cash Up Racing Bulls. So that is the end of our news article, and right on time as well, as we are but moments away from the start of qualifying today. We catch on board with some of the drivers making their way to the line to finish off free practice. Among them, Timo de Tosto currently fourth fastest at the end of free practice. Let's see if we can catch on board here. Here's Andrew Veldkamp, new livery as well in the 616. Behind him, Graham Green in the 747 Porsche. And Porsche really not going to be feeling too grand today. Either Forest or Green aren't going to be feeling the greatest coming into qualifying with that heavy, heavy ballast placed on the 718. Across the line then comes Andrew Veldkamp from 16th, remains there at the end of free practice. Quickly seen to the line, the number 58, if we can catch them here just before the incredibly long run to the line. Timo de Tosto from 4th place, crosses for 3rd at the end of free practice. And now catching on board with the 39 and the 30, David Tanguay and Christophe Dupois on their way through 130R. The Aston Martin now down to 2nd, as at the end of free practice, none other than Christian Lebay takes the fastest time. See if we can catch on board with them though. Dupois runs wide through the Casio triangle. Tanguay to the line, if we can catch the Aston Martin here before the line. Comes into the pit lane. So the number 22 is all we're waiting for now. That'll be John Prine making his way right now past the national paddock on his way to 130R. Let's get on board with the Chevrolet just to see what things are looking like from inside the car. Down through this section of the track, nearly flat out for the GT4. It's a little bit of a lift and coast through that section of the track. So down toward the line we go here for John Prine. 14th. As of his current fastest lap, a 2:14.437, right to the end of free practice today, right before the start of 20 minutes of qualifying. There he goes. So 20 minutes against the clock, and you can see no one is wasting time in round 3 of the championship. First out of the gates here, if we catch on board with him, is in fact David Tanguay, usurping Richard Cecil for the first position on track. He managed to cut up his fellow Aston Martin there on his way to the timing lines. Down through turn 1 and 2 we go. Then Tanguay will lead the main charge here of qualifying for the first couple of laps. Now, bear in mind the incredibly hot track conditions. It's going to turn this into a bit more of a free-form, quick-fire qualifying session. Much shorter stints to be expected than what we've seen in the last couple of rounds. As you can see, already a storm of GT4s making their way in through the S's. And looking at those qualifying predictions then, Christian Lebay predicted at pole position, but only by 7/10 of a second to Kevin Quain for another. Lebay and Quain front row lockout. Timo de Tosto not too far away at all by 2/10 of a second there. 2/10 and 1/100th, as a matter of fact, between himself and his fellow Mercedes of Quain in second place. Now you can see where things really start to close up a bit, because by 63 thousandths of a second to de Tosto is Liam Bello. Now moving away from Chevrolet and over to Mercedes, making it a Chevrolet 234 at the moment. And Bello with a 212.168 predicted currently at a very close 4th, could even be 3rd depending on the conditions and how they play out today. Anthony Valorio is right behind Bello as well. If you thought the gap was close between Bello and de Tosto, have a gander at the gap at the back of that top 5. 2 thousandths of a second divide McLaren and Mercedes for 4th place there. A 212.168 by Bello to a 212.170 by Valorio. Then behind him by about 2/10 of a second thereabouts is Carl Martel in 6th place. Byron Forrest not too far away at all. He's by about 3/10 of a second to 6th place. He's himself in 7th for the 212.620. Graham Green in 8th. Richard Cecil with Aston Martin now moving away from Alpine. Inside that top 10 once again, this time 9th. And ahead of Clinton Bourne, who rounds out our predicted top 10. As we see here, David Tanguay is about to start the first of his flying laps for Aston Martin. So we'll stay on board over the course of the first of our flying laps here. But the driver definitely looking to make much more of an impact than he was able to give off in his debut last week at Alton Park. Picked up a podium, but then meandering results in that second race took him out of the chances, thoroughly so, as he finished not only outside of the podium, but outside of that top 10. Well, the Canadian is looking to be the arch rival of Lebay. He's got quite the crowd to clear, and more peculiarly still is that his data doesn't even appear on the prediction chart, so it does leave this one the dark horse of the grid. We've already seen that he's capable of front row positioning times in free practice. We'll see though on quali trim what that Aston Martin number 30 is capable of as he makes his way towards turn 7. already a very spry start to qualifying. So towards the Degner curves, we've already seen it tackled a few times here. We'll see though flat out from the court of David Tanguay. Bit of a nip there over the inside. Then runs out wide past turn 8, then to turn 9, using every available inch of the track. But how far can you take it before a track limits violation creeps in on you? As we've seen before, quali is not an easy affair here in the Competizione Performance League. We've got a lot less creature comforts than you'd have over in GT3 and a lot less available grip. The driver's really having to use every available inch of the track, explore every possible nook and cranny on either side of the FIA Grade 1. You can see he has pulled a sizable gap in his first flying lap from Richard Cecil and Giovanni Badiali, who comprise our top 3 for the first times on the chart today. Though we can already see the number 5 appears to be invalidated, so we'll be keeping an eye on our new top 3, which appears right now to be Tanguay, and then Badiali, and then Lebay. So starting things off with a flourish of heavy hitters for qualifying, and there's going to be a lot of expectations weighing heavy on Giovanni Badiali, the number 998, moving away from BMW and towards Mercedes. So as we cap things off here for the first flying lap of the day in qualifying from David Tanguay, we'll be waiting to see what the responses are from Badiali, from Cecil, and from Lebay. That's if Cecil's time's valid as well. Out through the Casio triangle as our benchmark time. Is it valid then? As we did see quite a few sort of expeditions, you could say, off to the left and right hand side of the track at a few corners. But you see across the line, David Tanguay does not set a valid lap. So getting on board with Badiali, if we can find him here just before the line, will be the new benchmark of the day. Actually, it's Richard Cecil, so we were lied to by the data there. We'll see what is the response from Badiali. A 2:13 to beat, and he beats it by then some. 2:12.168. What's the response by Lebay? Across the line, a 2:11.370. The 6:07 of Kevin Quain next to the line, and he's third fastest. Behind him there, you can see is Graham Green with Porsche. He goes across the line. Right behind him is Liam Bello, also debuting for Mercedes today, and makes second fastest on his first trip away from Chevrolet. So with 5 minutes in already, it's looking very, very hopeful for the Mercedes trio in that top 5 right now, sandwiched either side of it by Chevrolet and Aston Martin. Timo de Tosto clocking in the 5th fastest time now, making it a Mercedes 2, 3, 4 and 5. So even in spite of things here, having a look back at the balance of performance statistics, even though Mercedes is weighing in with an extra 15 kilos, it is negligible because their car is so well put together for this track that change all but doesn't exist. We see Anthony Valorio now going third fastest in his brand new pink number 41 McLaren, splitting the tide here of Mercedes cars inside of that top 5, getting himself ever closer to a front row start. You can see how close the gaps are, though, from the back of that top 5. Valorio to Badiali, they're looking at about 600ths and 8,000ths of a second. And then from Badiali to Quain, you're having a look in and around the ballpark of about another 800ths there of a second thereabouts. Could be 700ths and 4,000ths of a second. Sorry, 800ths and 4,000ths of a second. They were being silly. Now, looking next to the line, the number 824 is next across the line. That's Byron Forrest with Porsche. Now, Porsche, like Mercedes, are going to be feeling some pronounced effects here of balance of performance. Where Mercedes seems to have shrugged it off, is it the case for Porsche? Well, not valid on this lap. For Byron Forrest, we'll have to wait yet another before we get to see what the American is capable of. The number 30 of David Tanguay strikes back at Liam Bello, taking second place with Aston Martin, pushing Bello down to the back of that top 3. Richard Cecil crosses the line for the top 5 in the number 5 on his first race with Aston Martin in this championship. Anthony Valorio, though, gets that top 5 as now introduced into the fray. I believe, having a look here, was, as a matter of fact, yes, Kevin Quain. Down across the line, the number 3 and the number 6 are next. So Gabriel Gaudreau to the line, doesn't set a valid time. The number 6 of Clinton Bourne behind him does, and he's 10th fastest with Chevrolet. On their way to the line right now, the number 58 among the crowd there. Timo de Tosto followed very closely by the debut drive here for Bartoletti. He goes 11th fastest right now, is about 9 tenths off the beat for a top 10 start. That currently is the benchmark from Clinton Bourne that he's looking to usurp. Number 41 to the line. So Anthony Valorio, you can see just how hectic qualifying's been to make sure that they can get those times in before the track gets too hot to handle. Valorio across the line couldn't find an improvement. You can see how close things are getting towards the back of the top 10 now. Look at the gap there between Richard Cecil and Timo de Tosto. 7 thousandths of a second between 7th and 8th. And things aren't exactly, you know, slim pickings up front. Yes, there is that gap right now by Christian Lebay, a whopping 3 tenths. In fact, one of the largest gaps we see inside of that top 10, if not the largest. Actually, you know, that currently is green to Bourne. You're looking at there about half a second, as a matter of fact, between those two at the back of the top 10. So second largest gap you can make the argument for. Actually, that's also a lie. De Tosto to Green, 9 tenths of a second. So third largest gap up front there. But then everything behind, you see it's a little under actually 800. So that's 700ths and 5 thousandths of a second between Tanguay and Quain. And then for Badiali, it's only 31 thousandths of a second between himself and Quain. And then for Liam Bello, it's just about, I think that's 72 thousandths of a second. So it's incredibly narrow inside of that top 5 if you take Lebay out of the equation. See Badiali down toward the line here. Can he make that 300ths necessary? He does it and then some. In fact, getting ever closer to pole position. Badiali then within 3 tenths, of a second. Himself 2 tenths, 300ths and 3 thousandths from pole position. 747 next across the line. Graham Green at the back of the top 10. Can he get ahead of his fellow Porsche, Byron Forrest? Yes, he can on the end of that last lap just gone. As we hit the halfway mark for qualifying, it has not been slim pickings whatsoever. It has been a real treat here in the searing heat in Japan. Down to the line comes John Prine. You can see exiting the pits up ahead us. A flurry of Mercedes cars. You also see to the line here, Timo de Tosto from 8th position. Can he get ahead of Richard Cecil on the end of that last lap? Only needed 7 thousandths. Couldn't find it in the 58. Next to the line, the 616, Andrew Veldkamp from 15th position. Crosses the line, but not for an improvement of position. The one who did improve on position, though, just crossed the line behind him, the 36. And that was of Alex Albert. We had confused earlier for the 39 of Christophe Dupois, who himself is in 17th position, having just crossed the line there, 6.4 seconds off the beat for pole. And also see here, Christian Lebay's making his way out of the Casio Triangle with 9.5 minutes to spare here on another set of qualifying laps. Now, he's got to really stage these quite nicely. He's got to time it to perfection. He's only really feasibly got about 2.5 laps at the most here of available wiggle room before those tyres get too hot. It could even be less than that now that the track temperature has increased with the frequency of cars battering against that FIA Grade 1. Number 824 is next to the line. We catch here Byron Forrest on the exit of the Casio Triangle. Clawing around at the back of that top 10 at the moment. Now, we knew Porsche were going to struggle here in Suzuka. Right now, Green and Forrest giving it a very good effort to be in that top 50%. And up and ahead of Green, there goes Byron Forrest. So taking back 9th position in the 824. He's putting on a very good show here, battling with his fellow Porsche, Graham Green, and the 747, who himself is just heading out of 130R. We'll see here, what is the rebuttal from the Australian? Down towards the Casio Triangle now, has to make 4 tenths of a second. So that message very loud and clear by Forrest that he's looking for 9th place and he is not going to be taking no for an answer here in that fight. All pivotal positions to play for in qualifying. So to the line goes Graham Green in hot pursuit behind him there, the number 99 of Karl Martel. 99 just across the line now. From behind Graham Green. Green sadly does not find the time for 9th place. Number 99 actually did have some problems down at turn 1. So that was Karl Martel running into a spot of bother. He himself couldn't find a time fast enough to go ahead of either of the 2 Porsches. Number 36 next to the line, Alex Albert. From 14th, crosses the line, does not go ahead of Bartoletti, who himself down towards the line as we speak. From 13th, also does not find an improvement. Richard Cecil from behind him in 7th, also doesn't find an improvement. You can see how close the gap is now getting inside that top 10. Having a look once again here, it's about 900ths of a second dividing Badiali from Tanguay inside that top 3. then out further past it, as we see the gap opened up, though, by Christian Lepay, now putting an extra 0.4 of a second on his fastest time, a 2:10.945. We did not think under these conditions such a time was going to be possible today, but he has really made that witchcraft inside the 1:19. He's made light work here of Suzuka. If that's not the precedent being put forward that he is looking for his 4th win today, I really don't know what is. 6 minutes, just under 7 left to go. Here in Suzuka, the 824 next to the line. Byron Forrest has been on a constant upward climb here for positions. Was up and ahead of Green, does not go up ahead of De Tosto in 8th ahead. We do see the number 41 ran into a spot above, but that's Anthony Villorio having some trouble through the Casio Triangle. The solitary McLaren of the championship running into trouble. Out through turns 16 to 18. It kicks off another flying lap here with minutes to spare. Only 6 minutes left to go, feasibly, with pedal to the metal here. Only about 3 more laps, in fact, even less so than that, to play for. Next to the line, we'll catch on board with the number 998. So Giovanni Badiali. Now for Gio, this has been a monumental leap forward from BMW. This has definitely been the right call for the Italian, and he puts an extra 10th on in his time there. So he's getting even further ahead of David Tanguay. Till the 607 across the line. Kevin Quain maintains 4th right now. Another top 5 start for the Canadian in the 607 Mercedes. Number 26 next to the line as we speak. Trying to catch on board here with Fabiano Bartoletti. And for the Brazilian, it has been a real baptism of fire because he's starting here what is feasibly 3 qualifyings down in the championship. So he's got a grid here fired up and ready to roll. And this is his first time into that grid. So right now just hanging low around the outside of that top 15, or around the outside of that top 10 in the top 15, I should say. Keeping things nice and cool here. Just some points on the chart will do. You can develop from there. Number 99 next to the line. That's Carl Martel from 11th. Crosses the line and sadly does not find an improvement up to 10th. One driver we've just seen as well is yet to set a time on the charts. Gabriel Gaudreau is out through 1:30R, so he's not too far away from setting a time here. Better late than never for the number 3, but he has taken his royal time, whether it be complications or strategy that's put him in this position. He's got very little time to play with. And could it have been a gamble worth making for the number 3? Well, we're on board with Gaudreau on his way to the line. Let's see what was the thought process for Gabriel Gaudreau from 18th position on track. Goes 13th fastest, so feasibly not the worst strategy in the world, but he is struggling to find that top 50% of results that he would have definitely needed for the race start here, and especially considering that Mercedes, despite that 15 kilo ballast, really do not seem to be feeling much pronounced effects. We've just seen across the line as well. Anthony Villorio for 2nd fastest in today's session with just under 4 minutes left to go. He puts himself within 0.4 of a second, just over 3 from Christian Lepay's pole position. And he also puts himself ahead of Giovanni Badiali, but we can see a new pole position. Now, I am staggered by this because no one saw this coming from out of left field. Timo De Tosto to the fastest time of today's session. That is remarkable stuff from the 58. What a lap there. 2 minutes 10.820. In qualifying predictions, De Tosto looked pretty competitive, but he was only looking at the best of times here for a second row start. The conditions ever more favourable for Mercedes as time rolls on. De Tosto up to pole. That is remarkable, and he puts it not by a couple hundredths here, but by a 10th and then some on Christian Lepay. What is going to be the response from the 119? He remains currently in the pit lane with time ticking away. He's not going to have a lot of time left to consider his options for a run of one more lap. I am utterly gobsmacked by that. Number 99 next to the line, Carl Martel. From 11th, goes to 9th. So Martel finally into the top 10, better late than never. It seems that track conditions, despite being 39 degrees on track surface alone, are getting a little bit more tolerable for the drivers, be it just good old-fashioned intuition, adaptation, or so on and so forth. Down to the line goes Byron Forrest then, still at the back of that top 10. Looking to go up and ahead of Carl Martel. Needed to find about 600ths of a second in order to do so. Doesn't find it on this lap, but has got one more in the pocket here before the end of qualifying. Letting him on by there, you can see to the left-hand side of your screens was Giovanni Battiali. Also himself gunning for a front row start. The Italian now on his move to Mercedes has got to clear not only Anthony Valorio, but now also has to clear Christian Lebay for the opportunity for pole position. But it's a new pole sitter, and once was already a surprise. Second time, I am absolutely taken aback, as a new pole sitter comes from McLaren. Anthony Valorio has found the secret recipe, and as too has Timo de Tosto. It's been disastrous here. It's beyond the point of no return. Lebay will not be able to take pole. The question therein remains for the next couple of drivers to the line. Are we going to see these dramatic jumps in time here? First of all, we'll check in with Alex Albert at the back of that top 15. Needs 2/10 to go up ahead of Gabriel Gaudreau and goes up and then some. Now up ahead of Bartoletti for 13th. Have the track conditions just accidentally become almost perfect at the end of qualifying? It has shifted many a result on its head. We've seen from the 36, now the 26 of Fabiano Bartoletti. Can he find the improvement necessary to go up ahead of both Chevrolets in front of him there for 12th position? You can actually see the one right behind him there, Clinton Bourne from 12th. Bartoletti across the line doesn't find an improvement. Bourne across the line, sadly, also doesn't find an improvement. So a bit of plateauing there from Aston and Chevrolet. The 22 next across the line, John Prine, has to find quite some time here. 9/10 of a second for Gaudreau's 15th position on track. Does not find it at the end of that last lap just gone. The number 39 next across the line, that's Christophe Dupois from 18th. Also doesn't find an improvement on this lap. But here's a driver that could, as Byron Forrest, who's been incredibly confident over the course of quali today in a very, very tight top 10, could be finding his way to 9th or perhaps even positions therein above, on his way to the line at the end of what has been an incredible turn of fate here in qualifying at Suzuka. Across the line goes Byron Forrest, sadly not to an improvement. Battiali, though, begins his final charge at the end of qualifying for round 3 today. Goes very wide into turn 1. And into the wall there. I think that was the signs of frustration from Battiali. Oh, my Lord. So, next to the line, having a look on our radars here, appears to be the number 26, the number 6, the number 58, and the number 39. So, most poignantly amongst that pack, the number 58, Timo de Tosto, who starts from the front row briefly for but a moment there, held on to a surprise pole position. The conditions suddenly shifted to put the Mercedes in a much better stead than Chevrolet. Could this be the race to be? Now, we spoke on it earlier. It would take quite a lot to usurp the control that Christian Lebay has had on this grid so far. Could it be, as predicted before, these harsh conditions that are the undoing of Chevrolet? Well, at the end of qualifying here, it is the story of two on that front row as the number 26 of Fabiano Bartoletti brings it into the pit lane there after a trouble down at 130R. We'll see just briefly here with Clinton Bourne, the number 6 down towards the line here from 12th. With Chevrolet, could he find a massive leap here? 0.6 of a second is what's necessary to go ahead of fellow Australian Graham Green for 11th. Across the line he goes. And sadly, not enough of an improvement. So let's get back on board with Timo de Tosto. Now the times register as invalid. We'll see if there is proof yet to that theory. Needs to find a 10th and 3,000ths for pole position off of Vilorio to the line. And sadly, the truth was out there and it was an invalid time for him, or at least not an improvement, as across the line he will remain in second. Dupois to the line from 18th, crosses the line. Will it be an improvement for the 39 here in Suzuka? Sadly, not the case, but what a shock turnout for the end of qualifying. Sudden shift in conditions gave rise to a dominant performance at the very last second there for Anthony Vilorio, who takes pole position here in Suzuka in his special livery, number 41 there at centre mass of the screen. And this is going to be a very delectable grid to pick apart here for round 3 of the championship. No funny business here, no go-arounds, no second opportunity like we had back in Alton Park. This is only 60 minutes of racing ahead of you. Strategy involved as well with that stop, that one mandatory pit stop, tyres and fuel included. But what a sudden turnaround, and Our apologies for not being able to cover those laps by De Tosto and Vilorio as they came completely from left field. We thought it was a done deal. Clearly, we're going to have to eat quite a bit of humble pie here in the recording studio right at the end of today's broadcast, as what a turnaround it has been for McLaren. So, on to that discussion for today's grid, and what a grid it is. Anthony Vilorio takes pole position in Suzuka and will start from the front row. Timo De Tosto on the front row as well in the 58 Mercedes in a shock turnaround for Chevrolet, puts Christian Lebay only in third. Starts on the second row alongside Giovanni Badiali on his first drive for Mercedes this season after a departure from BMW. Kevin Quain at the back of the top five then. David Tanguay in sixth as the leading of the Aston Martins. And in seventh place alongside him, Liam Bello on the road just behind Tanguay is another Aston Martin, and debuting for the Vantage this time around, Richard Cecil in eighth position. Carl Martel lines up alongside him in ninth. Rounding out the top 10 then, Byron Forrest, and on the same row for him, it's an all Porsche fifth row, so it seems just hybriding over into the sixth row, I guess I should make the argument for, as it's Forrest from Green in 10th and 11th for a Porsche 10 and 11. Clinton Bourne in 12th position, Alex Albert 13th, Fabiano Bartoletti in 14th, and Gabriel Gaudreau rounds out the top 15. Just outside of that top 15 then to bring us to 18 cars in total, John Prine in 16th, Andrew Veldkamp in 17th, and Christophe Dupois at the back of the field. That real talk of the day, though, comes at the end of what was a very big surprise, I should say, for us here at the end of that qualifying session. The magic in the making, capturing lightning in a bottle there. Between these two, McLaren and Mercedes comprise the front row for round 3 of the championship. So we wait here about a minute and a half before we get away for the formation lap here in Suzuka. I am left with plenty of questions. Starting of which is, what could we expect that opening lap to look like? Now, we've just had to quick glance across at the conditions on track now for at least the opening 30 minutes. And now I would like to be confident in the assertion we can't expect to see rain today, just given how mind-blowingly hot it is right now in Japan. And we're getting a little bit of a remote simulation of that here in the commentary box, because it is mind-bogglingly hot. 39 degrees the track will start for the surface temperature at for the opening lap of this race. If you don't warm your tyres up in a very specific manner here, they are going to change matter. A state of matter here. We'll be seeing liquid streaks of tyre up the road here in that formation lap. Getting on board with Anthony Vilorio then, our fastest driver of qualifying, and on his first pole position this season, the American has a very good opportunity to take this home as his first win of the season. Now, it is not impossible to suggest that he's race-winning material who got very, very close back at Alton Park. We know what he's capable of over on HCCL, which we're happy to announce we'll be looking to cover round 2 of the championship after discussions with HCCL staff. It's going to be a very exciting path ahead for us here on TRTN to be covering more rounds of the HCCL GT4 Challenge. So, taking us away on the formation lap, Anthony Vilorio from Timo De Tosto to make that front row. Now, we've seen time and time again, Chevrolet is one of the best brands to be when it comes to a straight line start, and this is no exception here. One of the longest opening straights for a Grand Prix venue, besides the I'd say you give a few examples here. The Mexican Grand Prix at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, and also the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for the Spanish Grand Prix. This is no different. You've got a very long run here down towards turn 1, and especially so after that first lap. Straight line speed will play a huge deciding factor here for who comes out on top down into turn 1. But then you can see we're right into the bread and butter of the European machines here, where maneuverability is of great consideration. Those S's are going to prove the fundamental difference here in setup from driver to driver, and also on paper from machine to machine. That Chevrolet, we know, is an absolute bullet in a straight line, and really it seems to only be the prowess of Lebay that keeps it in the clear and narrow. The clear and narrow here at Suzuka. It is remarkable to see that Chevrolet move so quickly, but will it be able to replicate some of that magic here in increasingly worsening conditions for it here in Suzuka? A very bizarre spectacle then. Very rare do we get extremely hot weather warnings for races, and rarer still is it here in Suzuka. I mean, we're looking at temperatures here not too far off. For those of you who remember the days where the Bahrain Grand Prix was ran in the daytime, one of the hottest races on record was about 43 degrees. So hot, in fact, that it would melt the engine blocks. Now, I don't think we're getting closer to that, but it's not hard to make the assessment that these cars are going to struggle. The GT4s aren't exactly the most reliable bunch. We've seen yellow engine warnings aloof in the time covering GT4 in the last couple of weeks here on TRTN. I don't think today is going to be any different. We could be seeing some engine overheat warnings creep up very, very soon in today's race. Bear in mind, only 60 minutes to play against, but that could definitely be a consideration. And that's really only the tip of the iceberg for temperature, because then you've got to start considering the absolute mind boggler of the tyre situation. Those Pirellis, sturdy as they are for GT4, are going to struggle. Don't take a genius to tell you that, but 39 degrees on track, it does things. It does terrible things to those tyres. Maintaining solid temperature is going to be less so a case of trying to keep temperature in the tyre as much as it is trying to evacuate excess heat from it. So this is going to be a very bizarre juggling act for our drivers, and thank the heavens then the regulations allow for that mandatory pit stop to have tyres on board, because I don't think the drivers are going to be wasting any opportunities here thinking they can double stack it for the same set of tyres in conditions like this. So we stay on board with Valorio down through 130 hours. We're but moments away then from the start of round 3 of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series, powered by Malois Transport and AssurAction Transport Expert. We are but moments away then. 9 cars apiece there, either side of it for round 3 of the championship. We make our way to the Casio Triangle. It'll be a long run down towards the line here before we go green and racing here in Suzuka for the first time in a long, long time. Last time we were here, I think, was actually back during VSR Phoenix, which, fun fact, we'll be covering season 9 of today, Wednesday, 3rd of September. But here, right now, in Competizione Performance League is the talk of the day. Round 3 of the championship is but moments away from starting. An hour against the clock here in Suzuka. The slow crawl then to the start-finish line, leading the charge then for his first pole position of the season is Anthony Valorio, and what a grid he's got lining up at his rear quarters. The long walk now to the start-finish line. Without further ado, for round 3 of the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series here on CPL, without further ado, are green and racing here in Suzuka. A great getaway from the front row. You can see already the Chevrolet picking up the slack for a run down towards turn 1. Tries to get alongside Timo de Tosto and gets second place almost instantly there. Into turn 1 we go. Leading the charge then, Valorio, now Lebay and De Tosto down to 3rd. Badiali alongside him. Could be looking for 3rd place here in a moment's time. You see the grid forming up behind him. A very clean start, all things considered, here in Suzuka. I may have just spoken too soon there. Trying to catch on board. You can see swerving around in the background as we see De Tosto and Badiali clash for 3rd place right now. The 2 Mercedes cars neck and neck. Right behind them is Kevin Crane against David Tanguay for the top 5. Was one of the Aston Martins in the background there. I think that was Bartoletti having a spot above her on the opening lap there, but nothing too severe. Down to the Degnas then for the first time. It's Valorio from Lebay, from De Tosto, Badiali and Quain in the top 5. Tanguay in 6th, Cecil in 7th. Out through the Degnas already, you can see Lebay is in hot pursuit of Valorio. This could be the story of 2 today. Right now, we're on board with that fight for 3rd. It kicked off already rip-roaring down into turn 1 between the 2 Mercedes cars on that second row. De Tosto and Badiali. De Tosto runs it wide, though. Tries to hold his nerve and gets it before turn 12. Right behind him, you can see already Liam Bello up and ahead of Byron Forrest as well. We just caught the trailing end of that move. You see here from Christian Lebay's point of view on that front row as he's chasing down Anthony Valorio, but we will get quite swiftly back on board as we briefly take a glance at the race leader here. Where was that fight for the Mercedes cars on the second row? We're back on board with Timo de Tosto. You can see the more these two squirm around for 3rd place, the more they invite in to come and have a go. Kevin Crane and David Tanguay are now right alongside these two here for what could be a 4-man fight for the last of those podium positions. You can see the front 2, though, getting away. Valorio from Lebay down into 130R for the first time here in Suzuka. We can see a much better line for Giovanni Badiali, but he's just not got enough room to make it stick at the Casio Triangle. Timo de Tosto runs wide, though, and has to cut turn 17 and 18. Oh, it's contact in the background. Oh, my word. Contact between the 2 Mercedes cars right behind Timo de Tosto. That was Kevin Crane and Giovanni Badiali. That's at turn 17. Contact between the 2 Mercs. That is heartbreaking for Badiali. So with De Tosto, he gets to breathe a sigh of relief there. There's now third places secured for the time being. Bear in mind, they've still got a bit of a fight going on in the background behind them. You can see now getting on board with a bereft Giovanni Badiali. He's now just scraping around at the back of that top 10. Fortunately, that incident didn't leave any lasting damage for the 988. And fortunately still, because he headed into what I believe was grass and gravel there on the outside of the Casio Triangle after that contact. So he hasn't done too much damage to his tyres. You can see he's already back into the fight here, now chasing down Alex Albert and John Prine, the two Chevrolet cars here, out through turn 7 at Dunlop. We will be catching on board with the action on the front row in a moment's time, and so I'm told here. It is getting very close up on the front row. Badiali up ahead of Prine at Degner. Up and ahead, you can see as well, there's Albert also up the road. Clinton Bourne and Graham Green clashing for the last of those top 10 positions. Up through turn 10, now to turn 11 we go at the hairpin. Badiali going the long way around. And does he manage to nip that move in on the 36? Yes, he does. Clinical work by Giovanni Badiali. So let's get a gander here at what's going on inside of that top 5. We're on board with Kevin Quain in the 607 on his way around Spoon Curve. What a start then to today's race. Plenty of action to discuss in the way of it. A great getaway by the McLaren of Anthony Villorio. Still at the moment holding off Christian LeBay. That could still erupt into a fight for the lead at any moment's notice here. We were on board with Kevin Quain. In front of him there, the yellow Mercedes of Timo de Tosto, the 58, now up to third and stays there for the time being. David Tanguay chasing down the pair of them from the back of that top 5. Then behind him, Cecil and Liam Bello as well on his debut for Aston Martin. Cecil with his debut oh, my mistake there. Bello with his debut to Mercedes. Cecil with his debut to Aston Martin. Those two could be getting into arms in a moment's time there for the fight of 6th place. Still on board with Kevin Quain. Now he's caught quite precariously in the middle here. Almost equal distances between himself and De Tosto and himself and Tanguay, meaning at a moment's notice here, one mistake could either pitch this as the fight for 4th or the fight for 3rd. Caught very, very strangely in the middle. That gap currently maintaining pretty solid balance. We'll cut across the field here to see where else is action on track emerging from. Byron Forrest now 8 tenths up and ahead of Carl Martel. Forrest gaining position then. The Porsche on the charge from 8th. Martel in 9th. There's Christian LeBay. Now, that dividing factor has dropped by some way there. It was just over a second last time we observed. Now it's under and looking actually towards half a second between these two in control of the race lead. You can see sliding out of the Degner curves. That is really the level of ferocity we're seeing here from the 119 after a very disgruntled end to qualifying. Saw him not even on the front row, but starting from the second row. But he's made light work of the opening 5 minutes of racing and could be elevating this into an early doors race lead. He has definitely given it 110% here, and so too has Anthony Villorio. So hats off to the pair of them for one of the most cinematic starts of the season so far. Down towards Spoon Curve we go then. We are fundamentally in the lookings here for the fight of 1st place. We're on board with the attacking of 2 then, in a very odd position for him. Not normally the attacking car for the fight of the race lead, normally the defending, but now the whole role flipped on its head here for Christian LeBay. 0.4 of a second, the dividing factor, oh my word, the stuttering is insane. The dividing factor between LeBay and Villorio. Just under 10 minutes into today's session then. A gap now just over 6 tenths of a second into the Casio Triangle. Later on the brakes for the Chevrolet, and you can see he reels him in under braking. Now as we exit the Casio Triangle, a good exit can go a long way here for Villorio. Same story for LeBay in a straight line. We know that the McLaren and the Chevrolet are very solid contenders here. That McLaren, so I'm told as well, and the right conditions on the right track is as fast as some of the slower GT3s in a straight line. So do not sleep on its ability here to hold its own. 0.05 of a second faster on that last lap, though, was Christian LeBay in the Chevrolet. So this is a fantastic little display. We've got here McLaren versus Chevrolet versus Mercedes versus Aston Martin in that top 5. Catch on board with LeBay in a moment's time. We take a look around the field as things are closing up inside of that top 10. We want to try and get a look on board here with the two Mercedes cars. As we quickly see here from Aston Martin's point of view, Tanguay and Cecil getting closer and closer to one another, but we want to try and catch on board. Just scrolling past here to Timo de Tosto and Kevin Quain. They are looking very close here for that fight of third place. The two Mercedes cars now occupying the entirety of that second row are in a world of their own here as the leaders continue to slip away. Into the Degner curves we go then. Right now, watching with Timo de Tosto from third place, the yellow Mercedes there. The black Mercedes behind him, the 607 is Kevin Quain. 0.7 of a second behind him, slipping slowly into the vice here of David Tanguay's number 30 Aston Martin, right on his trails, and following not too far from him either. You can see there Richard Cecil and Liam Bellow, and then Byron Forrest to make the top 8. 0.7 of a second the gap right now for the front runners. 0.6 of a second for that second row. Drops to half a second here as we enter turns 13 and 14. So for Timo de Tosto, he does find himself, like it or lump it, in that fight for third place. And he's going to be defending it this time around rather than attacking. Down towards turn 14 we go. You can see those two just rocketing away there in a world of their own. Still at about 7 to 8 tenths of a second. The same cannot be said, though, for that fight of second. That has now dropped to half a second as we enter 130R. Who's got more guts here in the run around turn... what's this here? Turn 15, my mistake. Into the Casio triangle we go then. Turn 16, 17 and 18. Clearly it was Quain because he's reeled him in there by an extra 2 tenths of a second. Now out through turn 18 we go. This could be the deciding factor in the fight for third here. Just under 10 minutes into this race. You can see in the slipstream, not a lot left in it now. Faster of the two in a straight line because of that slipstream. Quain puts himself to the inside here on Timo de Tosto. Down towards turn 1 around the outside goes to 58, but it's just a little too much of a risk to take. He still holds his nerve. Am I going to be proven incorrect? It could even be the case here on the exit of turn 2 into turn 3. Sadly, no, not the case, but he definitely held his own, and it's not over yet because up through turn 4, he's back to side by side. Now at turn 5, the saga doesn't end here in that fight for third. Just when you think it's over, there's a new chapter, a bit of contact between the pair of the Mercedes cars, de Tosto and Quain, getting into arms about it. The beneficiary of that little spat is David Tanguay. As we can see as well. Now, I missed this completely, but the 41 is in trouble. Where, oh where, is Anthony Villorio? Is he still in this race, or was it a disconnect for McLaren? We're feverishly searching here for where the McLaren went. We were so lasered in on that fight for third. I sure do hope we didn't miss some kind of incident there for Villorio. We now see as well David Tanguay just on the trailing end of that move, gets up and ahead of Timo de Tosto, now up for what is second place. But the question therein remains, where, oh where did the 41 go? Regardless of it, after 10 minutes then, Christian Lebay leads, Timo de Tosto drops to third, David Tanguay is up to second by a loose margin here, could actually have a bit of fight back from Mercedes in a moment's time. Kevin Quain in 4th, Richard Cecil 5th, Liam Bellow 6th, Byron Forrest up to 7th, Carl Martel in 8th, Giovanni Battiali after that incident is now back into the top 10, he's in 9th, actually up and ahead of Carl Martel, puts him technically in 8th position there, the data yet to have updated. Graham Green in 10th position, Clinton Bourne in 11th, John Prine in 12th, Fabiano Bartoletti in 13th, Alex Albert in 14th, Gabriel Gautreau 15th, Andrew Velkamp 16th, and Christophe Dupois up to 17th. So yes, there was a DNF. We could see incident here down at the Casio Triangle. Very, very deep into turn 16 was David Tanguay. That's going to make him increasingly vulnerable. We're back on board with Timo de Tosto now for what is the fight of second place. So much to the chagrin of the 41, it's been an upgrade for the fight here of de Tosto. Watching here as he fights with David Tanguay, just can't find enough slipstream, but one driver who can is the 607 right on his tail end down into turn 1 and 2. So a three-way fight for second place. No one's going to be arguing with odds like that. Kevin Quain versus Timo de Tosto versus David Tanguay. Behind him as well, you can see by only 2 tenths of a second. We'll be catching that in a moment's time. The fight for 5th kicking off at the moment between Richard Cecil and Liam Bellow on both of their debut drives. I'm still not entirely clued in. I feel like we may have actually missed the incident that took the 41 out. We're going to be checking some of the data here to see what exactly went on for him. But that is a mighty, mighty shame there for the 41. No, it was. So we did get confirmation there from Anthony Villorio. It was a client-side crash. His internet did go down. That has got to be gut-wrenching. it seems to be a recent streak of horrible, unfortunate and incredibly unlucky events that take prospective race leaders out of the charge of things. For those of you who tuned in to the Solo Multi-Class Endurance Championship, would have been given quite the bizarre spectacle of not only was it a rip-roaring start for Cas van Veltzen that put him up to nearly second in the race, and then his pedal case failed. He went barreling into the wall on the far side of the last corner at Nürburgring. But then we also saw after Ben Schiessman took a surprising lead of the race on strategy, then his hardware failed as well. And now we see it's the same story for Anthony Valorio. An internet failure has taken him out of round 3 of the championship. Right now then, it's Lebay from Tanguay, De Tosto, Quain and Cecil for the top 5. We could see this second place it is now realistically falling into that fight for third for De Tosto as Tanguay has peeled away 1.2 seconds up the road. It is now the two Mercedes cars clashing for third place, but no more are they passive spectators to this. You can see that Richard Cecil's Aston Martin and Liam Bellow's Mercedes are now getting actively involved in this fight for third place. It could be any man's game here. The no man's land of the opening straight gives rise to turn 1 and 2 in a moment's time. Who comes out on top of it though is in the slipstream, looking for the inside comes Kevin Quain. Is a little too far away to make a move that ambitious stick. Timo De Tosto has got the racing line in through turns 1 and 2. As a matter of fact, some of that chicanery has actually fired backwards on Quain because he's now backed himself up into Richard Cecil's Aston Martin, who I must say has had a phenomenal start to his debut drive with Aston. I may have spoken a little too soon there, a little bit of oversteer out through turn 4, now turn 5. Now turn 6, and you can see Quain has backed up onto Richard Cecil. Let's see if we can catch on board here with Kevin Quain. This is in that fight for 4th position. Up through Dunlop, and he's gone incredibly wide, so that's the position up for Richard Cecil. The Aston Martin up to 4th. Liam Bellow follows him through for 5th. That's quickly fallen apart. It's contact between Bellow and Quain. Disaster at the Degners. Oh my goodness gracious me. Surfing some of that bedlam there to get in between the pair of them is Byron Forrest, now up to 6th place. Kevin Quain clearly suffered the worst of it because he's now down to 8th and behind the driver he had an incident with earlier, Giovanni Badiali. One driver, though, who has definitely benefited from some of that bedlam from earlier on, if we can catch on board with him here, Richard Cecil. Now, bear in mind, this is the American's first drive away from Alpine. Now, he was quoted as saying, "I just can't take it anymore," when in the discussion about continuing to drive for Alpine. And clearly some of that frustration has actually worked to his benefit here because he's been able to get behind the wheel of a car on beneficial balance of performance that has actually got some of the grunt to back up its performance statistics. You're not dealing with a weedy little 1.8 litre engine from the Renault Megane. You're dealing with a whopping 4 litre twin-turbo V8 from Mercedes. And clearly that has been the recipe for great success today by Richard Cecil. In the background, though, you can see getting into arms here, Liam Bellow for the last of the top 5 positions. Byron Forrest has been on a blinder for the opening quarter hour of the race. You can see right with them as well, Giovanni Badiali could be getting into arms here for the fight to the top 5. We'll stay on board with Liam Bellow. If we can actually try and catch on board with the car in the middle, we always love a middle perspective here. Can we find the view from Byron Forrest? Yes, we can. So down towards turn 1. Let's get on board with the man in the middle right now. Byron Forrest, who started at the back of the top 10, is now right at the back of the top 5. Very wide into turn 1, though. This could fall apart before it has the chance to assemble for Forrest. Now holding around the outside. It could be contact, but very tidy there by Giovanni Badiali. He was not leaving an inch to spare here on the American. Has him for supper there for 6th place. Forrest, though, still clambering to the back of the Mercedes. Has an opportunity here to surf it up to 6th, perhaps even 5th here, because Bellow looked vulnerable in the last couple of laps here. He has since picked up the pace in the number 101. Now side by side on the exit of turn 7. Byron Forrest could actually fight this one back here for 6th place against Giovanni Badiali, but backs out through the first part of the Degners. We're on board with him now in through turn 8. This is remarkable racing we're seeing here in Suzuka. Right now, Forrest fighting for 6th up against Badiali. Could be fighting for 5th in a moment's time here as Liam Bellow creeps into frame from the view of the 824 Porsche. I think that really does go miles to explain some of the tenacity on the drivers today, and we've seen it quite clearly out of drivers like Badiali, like Bellow, like Forrest, and like Cecil from 4th down to 7th there. It's all of these drivers, given the right conditions, the right day, the right opportunity, can make absolute witchcraft out of these machines. I tremble to think what is possible sticking them in their favourite cars here, because I feel like with GT4 you do find yourself in a bit of a middling area of compromise. For a lot of people, the choice just isn't there for the car they'd really want to have. That would be up in GT3 where a lot of people's bread and butter is, but these drivers really are playing against uncertain odds, especially the case for Mercedes and Porsche. We stay on board here with Byron Forrest, just out through the Casio triangle. Still in that fight for 6th, but that is starting to dribble away a little bit here, as he's now 7 tenths away from the Mercs as they pick up into each other's slipstream. So there could be that fight for 5th here between Badiali and Bello in a moment's time. Let's have another look around the field. David Tanguay up in 2nd, but that gap between himself and Di Tosto is narrowing. And these are the two, well, you can't really call them sister cars here. All they share is a motor. Aston Martin, of course, we've said this several times before, uses the Mercedes M177 bi-turbo 4-litre V8 engine, an export variant produced by AMG specifically for the Vantage, and is based off of, if we can find it here, as we see, perfect example from the two Mercedes cars now fighting for 5th, was based off the M178 engine. And of course, Aston Martin, one of their largest investors as a freelance company, was the Daimler company, of course, one of the major parents of Mercedes-Benz. Was able to lend them that 4-litre engine. They ended up going on to use that as the basis for their GT3 platform. Mercedes themselves wouldn't opt to use the M178 engine. As a matter of fact, they would use the older 6.3-litre naturally aspirated V8 from the SLS program for their GT3 variant. Here are the AMG GT. We see up around the outside, as a matter of fact, to the inside, I should say, for turn 11, then around the outside at turn 10, then to turn 11, was Giovanni Badiali. Didn't even have the opportunity to process a move of that scale by Badiali. That is a man on a mission since his incident down at the Casio Triangle. We see K1 Jupiter and HCR Anthony joining us in chat there as well. Good evening to the pair of you. Well, I suppose good morning, because for some of you, you are tuning in what is it, 2:12 in the morning here in the UK. I'm going to get a noise complaint one of these days. No, I'm not. My walls are too thick. So, out through Spoon Curve on our way down the National Straight. Down towards 130R. Badiali from Bello. The story of two Mercedes cars here toward that 3rd row. Badiali has really took the baton since that incident down at Casio and ran with it. After that incident between himself and Quain, he's now actually up and ahead of Quain, who himself dropped some positions because of an incident between himself and Bello down to the Degner curves not long ago. As a matter of fact, if we can try and catch the last replay, I don't know if we caught exactly the Degner. This was, oh no, it was the incident actually from earlier on. This was towards the race start. That was Quain with Badiali from the perspective of Di Tosto. Now we see here from Liam Bello. Badiali up the road from him. Right behind him is Byron Forrest. That battle for 6th has now massively restarted for Forrest. Let's see if we can catch on board here with him. Having a look around the field just to see where the next battles could be coming from. Andrew Velkamp versus John Prine. Those two move over for position there for 14th. So in the next 9 or so minutes, we could feasibly expect to see those pit stops start to roll in. Now, of course, the regulations withstand 1 mandatory pit stop, fuel and tyres included. So for the race leader right now, he has got a lot to play for in the palm of his hand here. He can effectively control the pit stop strategies for the rest of the field as the leading car. And he's not leading by a short margin here, though things were definitely a lot closer in qualifying. Push comes to shove, Christian Lebay is your man for the race, and he leads right now by 4.5 seconds after 9 laps here at Suzuka. But back onto the discussion from before. Let's get on board with Byron Forrest here as he looks to take charge of the fight for 6th. Forrest himself started down towards 8th, or I think it was 8th or 9th position, regardless, was to the back of that top 10, has made quite some ground up, was briefly up towards the look of that top 5, but after the rampaging drive there by Badiali, that's been quickly shut down. But there is still opportunity yet for a fight, and Liam Bello sits right in front of him there. Bello, of course, on his debut drive for Mercedes in this round, moving away from Chevrolet, was one of 3 drivers to do so, the other 2 being Richard Cecil and Giovanni Badiali. Out through 130R we go then. As a matter of fact, those debut drives, I just want to point this out because the statistic tickles me, is those debut drives, Cecil, Badiali and Bello, there they are, 4th, 5th and 6th. So clearly gambles worth making for those drivers. and especially so for Richard Cecil. Now, we already knew he had serious upward potential even when he was driving for Alpine, and that car, yes, fantastic as it is in certain circumstances, just wasn't able to cut the mustard amongst the crowd here at the Competizione Performance League. But that move towards Aston Martin has definitely been one worth making. Now, we've seen plenty of riskier moves in GT4 before. One such example that springs to mind was Hayden Proger's move away from KTM to Porsche. That ended up giving the Brit his first ever win in the No Limits Racing League when he won in Imola. So we're seeing the inklings of that here creep out of these three. Do expect greater results on the horizon from Badiali, Bello and Cecil now that they've clearly found more comfortable ground from Mercedes and Aston Martin. Looking around that field, you can see Bello to Forest now about 0.8 of a second there. So that fight's still in the potential of happening here, but that opportunity is starting to dwindle. But we can see one fight start to kick off here as it's getting closer from 0.7 down. Is De Tosto to Tanguay for the last of those podium positions. Definitely a lot riding on this here between De Tosto and Tanguay. Tanguay's best result, second place at his first ever drive in this championship when he made his debut at the first of two races at Alton Park last, I suppose last Wednesday for us, last Tuesday for the American viewers at home. The best result for Timo De Tosto as well, having a look at that, was only fourth place. So De Tosto adamant for a podium today, but with the opportunity for a front row finish, he is not going to be wasting time in the 58 out through 130R. It's now 0.6 of a second between himself and David Tanguay, the battle of the AMG engines. Hey1 Jupiter saying, I've just had deja vu, there's about to be a crash. I'm pretty sure that's deja reveille you're speaking of, when it's having deja vu for something that's yet to have happened. Either that or you're referring to a crash that happened before, which more than definitely happened at the Casio Triangle, because it is just that corner. Down towards turn 1 and 2 we go then. Still on board with Timo De Tosto. Right now we are definitely looking at the kindlings here of a fight for second place. Right now, watching from the 58's point of view, we will get a look around the field to see where the next fights could be coming from, but for the sake of De Tosto, he is totally tunneled in now on David Tanguay, the number 30 Aston Martin, second place in this race, currently on his joint best result if he is to stay where he is in the next 35 minutes, but not if De Tosto has anything to say about it. And out of turn 7, believe me, he does. 0.2 of a second between him and the Aston Martin ahead. Down towards the Degners, a very, very precarious spot of the Suzuka International Racing Course. Both of them tackle the first part of it with relative ease. In through the second part, it's the Aston Martin getting a little bit wide there out of turn 8, or turn 9, sorry. Now to turn 10 and 11, but ultimately gave him more momentum for the run down into the hairpin. Up and ahead, you can see the lapped Mercedes there, number 3 of Gabriel Gaudreau. Looking on the field there, Richard Cecil takes a very early run into the pit lane. Now, doesn't appear to be any damage on the Aston. Admittedly, this is on its way out, so not that we'd known, but it was too short a pit stop to be realistically considering that it was a repair stop. A1 Jupiter saying, if it does happen down at the Casio Triangle, I will be very smug. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but you're late to the party when it comes to that. Having a look on the instant replays. Now, this happened earlier on. We're watching here with Timo De Tosto. It was actually the incident behind between Quain and Badiali. So you are a little bit late to that prediction. In through 130R we go. Still in that fight for second. Timo De Tosto versus David Tanguay. Mercedes versus Aston. You can see the Mercedes in front. Gabriel Gaudreau is caught in the way. He has to run all the way off at turn 16, now turn 17, now turn 18. They're properly tackling those curbs now. Better of the two exits goes to Tanguay. The Aston Martin, they're up now 0.6 of a second. That fight for second still very, very lively. Catch up with these two in a moment's time here. We see Giovanni Badiali is in pursuit, not too far away. Now, one slip up from either of those two is directly to his benefit. We can see in the background another driver into the pits here. And that is Liam Bello has come into the pit lane. If we can try and catch on board with him here, we quickly see from Tanguay's point of view, that still hovers in and around the half second, just north of the half second mark here. We can see Richard Cecil already having taken his pit stop is out on track, but we want to catch here Liam Bello on his debut drive for Mercedes is into the pits. You can see the very long drive down to his pit box right at the end of the pit lane there. Not very great for the run into the pits. Fortunately, he's only got to do one today, so long as he doesn't take on any damage, but it'll be a very short run out, if that's of any consolation. Back on board then with De Tosto. As a matter of fact, we did see from Tanguay's point of view but a moment ago. Let's see if we can get that once again, just so that you can get a scope as to how close things are for second and third. We just briefly saw escaping from sight was Christian Lebay. See if we can catch on board here with the driver in second place. Though, believe me, we are struggling with the menu navigation here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. Wouldn't be a stream like it without it. So, on board with David Tanguay in that fight for second. Getting a look over the rear view, you can see, really, you're only talking about 2, maybe 3 car lengths here between himself and the Aston Martin. A drive-through penalty just announced there for Liam Bello in the 101 for an infraction in the pit lane. So that's disastrous for the 101. 31, just under 32 minutes left to go today. Out through Spoon. This could definitely be a corner we could expect to see penalties get dished out on, as drivers are getting a little too ambitious here. Much like the story of Icarus, are flying a little too close to the sun here and do expect some wings to melt. Down to 130 we go. Tanguay from De Tosto. 0.4 of a second here. Now a little bit of aero wash is setting back De Tosto's progress at 130R. Taking big gulps there of dense air over the nose of that Aston Martin. David Tanguay does not have the same kind of predicament, and he's going to dump for the pit lane. So jumping away from that fight almost immediately. Timo De Tosto then goes up into second place. So let's have a gander around the field here. Timo De Tosto now up to second place. Lebay still leads, but by 4.5 seconds, so the Chevrolet could be considering its odds here for a run into the pits. A stop-go 30-second penalty for Christophe Dupois after his pit stop. The number 39 now dished with a penalty. That seems to be a theme here, rolling in thick and fast at Suzuka here at the midway mark of round 3 of the championship. We see here Badiali versus the lapped car of Gabriel Gaudreau. No issues there for the 998. He really is right now a man on a mission there since that incident down at Casio between himself and Kevin Quain. He is not leaving anything up to chance here. As a matter of fact, by pace alone, could even be looking to catch De Tosto before he takes his run into the pit lane. But right at the midway mark of this race, do not expect to see those front runners out for much longer. You can see the physical gap there is closing down. The yellow Mercedes there at the foreground, just escaping sight, was Timo De Tosto's 58. See here, Andrew Veldkamp's into the pits, and it's a very lively pit lane among them. Kevin Quain, Byron Forrest, and Carl Martel all in the pit lane as well. We can see Kevin Quain and Byron Forrest will be leaving the pit lane right at the very same time. These two will be battling from the word go here. Kevin Quain gets a little bit of a head start, getting to the line just a little bit earlier. Crosses over the white lines, though. Could that be what's catching drivers out here? We have seen issues before with pit lane track limits, or pit lane limits, I suppose is more the accurate term, but doesn't seem to have affected Quain all that much. Maybe it's nitpicking from us here. See Alex Albert and Fabio Bartoletti, 6th and 7th there after the pit lane runs around them. These two still yet to have served. Looking on the field here at the halfway mark as we see right now where things stack up. Christian Lebay, could he be looking at a run into the pits? Yes, he is. So the race leader then into the pits. Timo De Tosto, will he follow him in? Yes, he will. Is that the case for Giovanni Battiali? Redemption day for the Italian. He stays out. So this is remarkable. What is the thought process here for Gio? In the time since that incident, he has taken the fastest lap and then some. He is on an absolute warpath here. Now leads round 3 of the championship, but with that pit stop still to serve, what is he playing at here? What could Gio be cooking? Graham Green going into the pit lane then. Clinton Bourne, his fellow Australian, follows him in. The number 6 there, just narrowly clipping the pit lane entry lines. On his way out of 130R. On his trails. Behind him there, Alex Albert. And here we can see on the centre of our screens the Aston Martin of Fabio Bartoletti. Fabiano, sorry, Bartoletti. He stays out. And that is definitely a curious strategy when you see that Albert behind him goes in. So what is the equal thoughts here? What is the thought process for Fabiano Bartoletti? He exits the pits actually just about up and ahead, yes, as a matter of fact, to Christian Lebay and Timo De Tosto. The pair of them exiting the pits very, very close to one another there. If De Tosto can properly lock in a solid second stint here, he could be up with Lebay for what is going to be the provisional race lead. You can see not too far away at all. That is a terrifying sight there. The Terminator, the number 30 of David Tanguay, is in pursuit of that Mercedes, just like they were right before they run into the pits. Returning to order as it is. Still in the pits at the moment. Graham Green on his way out, following... actually, as a matter of fact, trying to see who that was with him there. That is Dupois, so that's the laps number 39 there, just up and ahead of him. Exiting the pits behind him then will be, right now, Clinton Bourne, as Carl Martel has gone up and ahead there. Cunning strategy puts Martel back up to 9th place. Real story then resides in the court here of our new front row. Giovanni Badiali started this race on a low, has turned this around into a race lead, but where will it stand here if he takes the leap now? 14 laps in to this race here, round 3 at Suzuka for the Competizione Performance League. A stop-go 30-second penalty for John Prine, and into the pits then comes Giovanni Badiali. The gamble of a lifetime here, his move away from BMW was marred by a rough start today, but could it be turned around? That's the real question. We're on board now with Fabiano Bartoletti on his first race of the championship. Now, he signed up back in round 1. It doesn't classify him as a new entry today, but this is his first race nonetheless. And for the Brazilian, it has been a real learning curve today. It has not been an easy debut by any stretch of the imagination. Out through 130R then. Maybe it's because I'm a sucker for a good yellow, but I just really like that livery. I think it might primarily be the yellow, to be honest. I am remarkably simple when it comes to colours and shapes. So down through the Casio Triangle. He stays out where Badiali stays in. So Bartoletti, through long-winded strategy here, looks to be, yes, as a matter of fact, as we cross the start-finish line, leading this race here in Suzuka. That is remarkable stuff by Bartoletti, but again, similar in the story for Giovanni Badiali. We can see as he exits the pits here, he loses that position not only to De Tosto, but to Tanguay as well. So that gamble, great as it was, still only pitches him right now for what is going to be, as he makes his way through turn 1 and 2. If we count De Tosto, Tanguay and Lebay, only as good as 4th position. Not too bad when you consider it was an all-Mercedes second row, but Badiali definitely had aspirations for a much higher result out of today. We'll see where that lands in the next 25 minutes. He was doing a very, very good run of things today after that incident. I've never seen a drive so committed after an incident like that. Down here in GT4. Checking in with Christophe Dupois. He lets Clinton Bourne roll on by through turn 1 and 2. Here's John Prine. So the question there is for the 22. We saw that stop-go 30 roll in on him not a moment ago, and he comes into the pits, so it seems yes to serve that stop-go 30-second penalty. You can see it's not a very long run to the pit lane line here, and he only just managed to get it tucked in on the pit limiter before that line. You see here with Christian Lebay, used to lead this race, but still waiting to see what Fabiano Bartoletti has up his sleeve. I don't think he's going to have to wait for a pit lane run, as he's reeling him in. That was not a moment ago. That was about 7 seconds, and it has been split down the middle. He has parted the times here like the proverbial Red Sea on the exit of Spoon. He is not waiting for strategy to give him the lead again. He is going to be taking it by force, come hell or high water. Out through 130R then. We'll stay on board with Lebay as he looks to be, whether or not Bartoletti comes into the pits or not. He looks to be, in a moment's time, potentially leading this race once more. I've got to say, that is such a heartbreaking moment, though, for Anthony Valorio. He led this race with such confident vigour after what was a fantastic qualifying session. There were plenty of twists and turns there in the last 10 minutes, especially for De Tosto, now behind Lebay. But that is just mastery of one's craft there when it comes to racecraft, and Lebay just annihilated the expectations today. Definitely did put a bit of a lump in the throat for us in the concept as to whether or not Lebay might actually not win a race today, but I think we're seeing another decisive Lebay classic here from the 119. Then again, 23 minutes left to go, so we've already seen bizarre things happen today. It is not out of the realm of possibility for it to happen again, so never say never on that front. It's not over until it's over. right now for Fabiano Bartoletti. He has got a quite nasty sight there backing into his rear view mirror. 1.3 seconds in closing. Christian Lebay is not waiting for your pit lane run anymore. He's coming for the position on track. We are seeing what is definitely, yes, regardless of strategy, a fight for position here for the race lead. 22 minutes left to go. It has been an incredible round so far here in Suzuka. And up on the inside at turn 11 after going very wide. Bartoletti could forfeit the position here. He's actually going to claw onto it for turn 12. It's Aston Martin versus Chevrolet. We're on board with Lebay's right up to the back end of Bartoletti. It's a bump there between himself and the Brazilian who's into the wall. That is a gnarly impact from there. And he ricochets across to the other wall. That's not a great look. Getting a look at that on the replay. I think he was attempting for a bump draft. We just see the aftermath of it there. That's murder. I'm sure he didn't mean to do that. You can see the more innocent endeavour of him trying to do a bump draft, but unlike NASCAR, that doesn't really work with a GT4, and especially not on ACC's physics engine. Oh, Lord, no. You'd have a better chance bump drafting in Gary's mod than you would on this game. Lord knows it. Well, that's going to be a bit of controversy at the end of this round, isn't it? Let's see if we can catch on board with Bartoletti. Yes, it is quite gnarly damage there. Ooh, that's not looking good for him. That really isn't looking good for him there. Not his fault as well. He was just slower through turn 12. He was trying for a bump draft. And we happen to be on ACC. Really, the rest is history. So for Bartoletti, fair play to him. He's managed to keep it on track after that ping pong against the wall. Is that close enough to count as a prediction from me, asks K1 Jupiter. Well, considering that it didn't happen at the Casio Triangle, no, it didn't happen there. So, sorry, Bet Builder's lost there for you, mate. See Liam Bello. Now down in 12th position right now after that penalty. Timo de Tosto, only 2.5 seconds from Lebay here. Now, could we be seeing degrees of hesitation from Christian Lebay trying to make up for that mistake, or is he just going to have to knuckle down and deal with the consequences come the checkered flag? Down through the Degner curves. I must say as well, David Tanguay is not too far away here, so don't count out a podium fight here, at the very least a front row fight. So you can see there, that is a very scary sight, because reeling into shot there is Giovanni Badiali, not too far away at all. In fact, closer than he's been in a long time here to that top three. There could be a very spicy fight coming up for a podium between Tanguay and Badiali. Make no mistake of that. 20 minutes left to go then here in round 3 of the championship. Plenty of twists, plenty of turns, but still at the end of the day, only one can come home with the race win. Right now, Lebay leads from De Tosto on your screens at the moment. Tanguay right behind him in the silver and turquoise Aston Martin just in frame there. And right behind him, the number 998 of Giovanni Badiali. You see here from Badiali's point of view, 1.1 seconds the margin between himself and the Aston Martin. Now, we've seen already David Tanguay is no pushover when it comes to positions here on track, so I highly doubt this is going to be an easy fight for either side of them. So you've got the unstoppable force and the immovable object there positioned right at the back of the podium, so this is going to be one incredible fight here. Out through the Casio Triangle. You can see, well, what we can hear, as a matter of fact, some incredible backfire on the 998. Now, I'm not very well tuned to the acoustics of the Mercedes AMG, but I'm not entirely certain it's meant to snap, crackle and pop like a chip tune on an i20N. So do educate me as to whether or not that's an indication of some potential engine trouble for Mercedes. Now, we did say someone was going to struggle today with the engines. It's 39 degrees on track. It's not too far off that for ambient. I really would not rule it out as someone is overheating, if not all of them were overheating. Do I think there's the possibility for an engine blowout? No. No. The similar conditions we mentioned before from the Bahrain Grand Prix back when it used to be running the daylight. Yes, it was hot, but those were engines running north of 20,000 RPM. I don't think you're going to be getting that kind of rev range out of a Mercedes engine on either of those two cars from 3rd to 4th. Stay on board, though, with Badiali, because he is starting to reel in Tanguay. It was 1.3 seconds not long ago. It is now half of that, 0.6 as a matter of fact. So we're on board for the fight of third. Now, if I had to take some honest pickings here as to what I would think is driver of the day material, I really don't think you've got to look much further than Giovanni Battiali. He did fight back from quite uncertain odds indeed. That incident between himself and Quain down at the Casio Triangle on the first lap of racing, and he has fought back not only to be ahead of the same driver that he got into arms with down at turns 16 through 18, but now to be fighting at the cusp of a podium finish. That is nothing short of excellence from Battiali, but he still has one more obstacle to clear here. That is not an easy one at that either. The number 30 of David Tanguay still with a point to prove here. Tanguay's best result was on debut, second place in Alton Park, but 12th on the second race of 2 last week. Now looking for at least another solid result today. The chances here for second are starting to slip away as Timo de Tosto peels away. It's very, very late on the brakes there for Battiali, and he's done very well to avoid an incident between himself and Tanguay. Like, get a look at that. That is some split-second reactions there from the Italian. He's done remarkably well to keep himself and Tanguay out of trouble while staying in the fight. That is proper race control you're seeing there. Well, not race control, car control. Racecraft. I think it was somewhere between racecraft and car control. We ended up with race control. I'd hope he's not doing race control. Drivers aren't allowed to do that. Conflict of interest and whatnot. Out through turns 3 and 4 then we go. These two, they make this look so remarkably easy. Now, anyone who's been at Suzuka can tell you that this can be either a very nice section of the track or the most irritating part of the track, besides the obvious being the Degners at turns 8 and 9. But these two, they make it fluid in motion. They're just dancing around that area of the track. A bit of trouble at the Degners, and he has to back off there, Battiali, on Tanguay. Into turn 10 and 11 then at the hairpin. You can see now, yes, that early move to the inside. That's the indication here. Some defensive posturing by Tanguay. I think he knows that he can't keep the tyres in any better health here compared to the Mercedes, and he knows that his goose is cooked, but he's going to try and make this as difficult as possible for Battiali. He's going to try and make him cook his own Pirellis out here before the end of this race, and with 15.5 minutes to go before the checkered flag, this could get very hairy for third place here between Battiali and Tanguay. Out through turn 14 we go, then we saw a little bit of backing off there on the throttle just to try and get just an teensy little bit more rotation for Tanguay's Aston. And now right on his hind here is Battiali. Is Battiali thinking for the impossible here to the inside? He backs off of it, trying to make Tanguay run the long way around track. He ends up messing his own line up a little bit there out through turn 15. Now to the Casio Triangle. This is incredibly close between the pair. These are two drivers almost perfectly tuned to one another's driving style here. It's like looking in a mirror. Down into turn 1 and 2 we go then. You can see this almost visceral display between these two. That Mercedes is struggling, it's flexing, it's creaking under its own weight there to keep right to the back end of the Aston Martin. There's almost this tangible feeling in the way they're able to control these cars to within some extent here. It makes it look almost alive. Maybe I'm overreacting, maybe I'm drumming things up for the sake of hyperbole and the sake of wanting to seem poetic. But really, you do get this impression here from the way these cars dart around the track and the way they duck and dive and react to one another, that there's this palpable feeling about them, this organic feeling to the way they're moving around this track. And maybe that just goes to testament to how good Suzuka is. What a move to the inside, by the way, there. Up through turn 11. Can there be the switchback held by Tanguay? No. And a proper lunge for the inside there by Battiali. And sadly, we only captured the second half of that move there, so the replay system really not doing us many favours here in Suzuka. But it's not over yet, because Tanguay still has a point to prove. Trying for the inside here at turn 13, has to duck back in behind the 998 Mercedes. Great defence by Battiali there. Good area denial from the Mercedes. Took him by surprise for turn 11. Now out through turn 13, puts 6 tenths between himself and Aston Martin's David Tanguay. 13 minutes to go. LeBay has escaped sight for now. De Tosto not too far away. The story is for the last of those top three, for the last of that coveted podium position. Badiali has properly fought this one back, and hats off to him. We'll catch up with these two a little later on here. Still 12.5 minutes left to go here in round 3 of the championship. Let's get a look around the field, though, to see where our next fights could emerge from. Looking up on that front row, Christian LeBay returns to leading form of this race here after that incident for Anthony Valorio sadly took him out of the chances to fight for his first race win. It looks to be a potential chance for Christian LeBay's 4th, but not if Timo de Tosto has anything to say of it. Now, we saw late game performance for Mercedes is much, much greater, so it seems, than Chevrolet, and there is definitely a tyre heat concern for the 119. You can see a little bit more hesitation practice than when we saw him during quali, and even during the start of the race there, where he was glued to the back end of the 41. Christian LeBay is having to be a little bit more gentle with that Chevrolet. Out through the Degnas we go then. That's not a motion reciprocated by De Tosto. He has properly been thrashing the pistons out of that 58. You've got to really see here at Suzuka, it is the land of the V8 engine. All the way down from 1st there to 6th is all V8 motors. What's even striking there is only one of them is manufactured by Chevrolet. "11 minutes then left to go. And this is where it stands right now as we approach the final 10 minutes of what has been a spectacular outing here at the Suzuka International Racing Course. It's Christian LeBay leading the charge then ahead of Timo de Tosto, but by a narrowing margin could indicate a potential fight for the lead coming up in the next 10 minutes. Giovanni Badiali has fought things back to 3rd place with the fastest lap ahead of David Tanguay. Richard Cecil on his first drive away from Alpine and into the courts of Aston Martin has found a top 5 for his very own here in the last 10 minutes to go. Kevin Quain in 6th place, Byron Forrest in 7th, and Carl Martel in 8th. Graham Green in 9th, and rounding out the top 10, Clinton Bourne on another top 10 appearance with Chevrolet. Liam Bello outside of the top 10 there after that penalty finds himself 11th. Alex Albert in 12th. Andrew Veldkamp having made a few positions there to 13th. Fabiano, sorry, not Fabio. I keep calling him Fabio. Fabiano Bartoletti in 14th position. At the back of the top 15 then, John Prine. Christophe Dupois having gained 1 position this race up and ahead of Gabriel Gaudreau, who rounds out the positions. Well, actually technically gaining 2 positions with 1 DNF there from Anthony Valorio. Admittedly, not much he could have done about that. That was an internet concern. The worst kind of problem you can have besides a hardware issue, which we, as mentioned before, have seen a little too many of in our last trip into a championship, and that was at the Solo Multi-Class Endurance last Saturday, and well, frankly, the sooner I forget about those technical problems, the better. 1.1 seconds remains the gap. Now, this has been a very finely balanced and very tediously controlled 1.1 seconds between these two, dancing their way around the track. 9.5 minutes to spare here in Suzuka. Only one can emerge the leader, and it could be at a hair's width margin by the end of things here, with how closely these two are willing to fight it. Out through turn 11 then, LeBay from De Tosto. Badiali is catching. I want to point this out. He is slowly reeling in De Tosto. Do I dare suggest there is a fight for 2nd on the horizon? Maybe a little too early to call here. 9 minutes to go. Feasibly looking at about... Now, my maths isn't the greatest, but you're looking in and around 4.5 laps, so feasibly then 5 before the end of today's race. Catch up with the front row in a moment's time. We have a look towards the back of the top 10. Clinton Bourne, 8.8 seconds from Graham Green, his fellow Australian there, rounding out the top 10. With Porsche and Chevrolet, Liam Bello 3.2 seconds behind and gaining could indicate a fight for the last of the top 10 positions not too far from now. Byron Forrest a little too far away here to stage a fight for 6th place with Kevin Quain. But great hustle by the 824 here. Started in, I believe, 8th position, is up a position there. Any race that you can gain a position in is one is you should be happy enough to walk away from. Now, of course, there were greater aspirations on the table here for Byron Forrest, and he's certainly given it a very good go here in Suzuka, but push came to shove, and ultimately you've got to look back at that balance of performance. Porsche were massively against the ropes coming into today's round. 37 kilos, as a matter of fact, added on to the 718. That's one of the heaviest ballast weights we've seen added on to the Cayman this season. So he has been playing against very unfair odds for Porsche. Now, admittedly, this hasn't come without reason. The Porsche is one of the most nimble cars on that field. Porsche do not play around when it comes to GT4, and especially not with the Cayman. It may be the little brother of the legendary 911, but it is equally as ferocious. And you'll be able to see what the Porsche 911 can do later on today, as a matter of fact, for our European viewers, as on, on today, Wednesday, 3rd of September, 2025, we'll be kicking off the opening round of Season 9 of VSR Phoenix, heading over to a full Porsche Cup format from Brands Hatch this evening coming, and that's going to be very exciting to cover that later on today. For our American viewers, that'll be tomorrow. Having a look here, De Tosto has reeled in Le Bay. Now, I don't want to speak too early on the possibility of a fight for the race lead, but, you know, let's at least try and hope a little bit here today for an exciting end of today's race. And we've certainly had an exciting race throughout. What a way to cap things off then if we get to see some side-by-side action. And I don't think we're too far off the suggestion. 7 minutes left to go. That time couldn't be ticking by any slower for the race leader, Christian Le Bay, looking on the premise of not only extending that championship lead, of which he already covets by some, I believe, looking at the numbers here, yes, 24 points that he currently holds against Villorio, who is going to massively miss out in the championship here. He'll be playing back for scraps in the next couple of races coming up for round 4, my mistake there, of the championship next, which is another double stint race, 30-minute races apiece there at Donington Park for round 4. The championship do thoroughly look forward to seeing how it pans out there. But right now is the trailing end here of round 3 of the championship, and we are seeing the premise of a fight start to kick off here between Le Bay and De Tosto. I never thought I'd see the like here, but it's half a second. It's that magical barrier we've all been waiting for. So we stay on board here with Timo De Tosto, who could stand on the chances of a race win today, as he is now more so than ever fighting for first. They kick things off already through the first curve. It's definitely some kind of hesitation for the Chevrolet, whether it's tyres, whether it could even be engine trouble for Christian Le Bay. We don't yet have the answers, but we can see it has definitely been a much more hesitant drive in the second half than it was in the first. And Timo De Tosto is acutely aware of this, and that Mercedes has been able to reel in that Chevrolet. He's got him on the line now. And it doesn't look like much chance of an escape here for Le Bay. It's going to have to be properly elbows out if he means to keep the 58 behind him. For Timo De Tosto, he's just got to wait, buy his time. Admittedly, not much time left to play for, but the element of surprise will take him a long way. And so too will it for the driver behind him, Giovanni Badiali. We saw that move against David Tanguay. They got him up in a third at this very section of the track, mind you. 5 minutes left to go. Every minute here ticking by like an hour. It really cannot come by soon enough, the checkered flag for this race, can it? And for Christian Le Bay, I cannot imagine the status of affairs going on inside that 119 is... I mean, his heart rate's got to be sounding like drum and bass at this point. He's got to be sweating bullets, sweating cannonballs here at the very thought of losing out this race win to Timo De Tosto. And for Timo De Tosto, this is one of the greatest opportunities he's been given here in the Competizione Performance League, and his chances here to fight for what could be a legendary first here, to upset what has been a hat-trick of wins by the car in front of him. A lot rides on the line here. Make no mistake of it. Down towards 130R we go. We're on board with De Tosto. Getting a look here at the status around 130R. You can see slightly better of the two exits goes to the Chevy in front. Le Bay just has a little bit more oomph out of that corner. Into the Casio triangle, though, you can see the Mercedes can attack the curbs definitely a lot more here. He's willing to throw a lot of risk into this drive. Now, we've seen that come apart for some drivers before across a few different series, getting a little too friendly with track limits right at the trailing end of this race here, just to get even a tenth in closer to the car in front of you. Can be the undoing of plenty of great drives, and it can also give rise to plenty of great race wins. So it goes both ways here for these two. 4 minutes left to go. I mean, we're sweating here. I can't even imagine what they're feeling on that front row. That really, it has got to be the most tense front row I think we've seen here towards the end of a race, and it could go either which way. De Tosto right on top of LeBay here. You can see that Chevrolet, it's creaking, it's swerving, it's struggling for that grip there, clawing at the asphalt on tyres practically near molten to keep any kind of grip on the track. That Mercedes is right on him here. De Tosto right with him. He's circling him like a vulture now. He's waiting for his opportunity to strike, and he may have the opportunity amongst the lap traffic coming up here. Bartoletti and Veldkamp in the fight for 13th right now, separated by only about 0.4 of a second, but they've got to shove out of the way here. They're side by side. Veldkamp up and ahead of Bartoletti. De Tosto and LeBay follow him on through. Oh, this could get very sour. Those of you who remember that last incident was between LeBay and Bartoletti. This could get a bit naughty here. LeBay's managed to surf the crowd. So too is De Tosto up past Veldkamp. You can see behind them there, those two reunite, but right in front of Giovanni Battiali, unintentionally blocking the Italian here from any further advance up to this leading fight. Dare I say it, because he is not too far away at all. Could it be a last lap three-way dash for the race win here in round 3 of the championship? Never say never on that front. Down towards 130R. We are on towards the final lap in a moment's time here in Suzuka. And what a way to cap off round 3 as it still hangs up in the air. Who comes out on top here for round 3 of the championship? Is it LeBay for a 4th win after one double stint race and one single race at the season opener? Or could it be a historic first for Timo De Tosto? One more lap decides their fate here in Suzuka, and here we go out of the Casio Triangle for the final lap here in Suzuka. Right on his trails then of Christian LeBay. We're watching with Timo De Tosto, not too far from him either, 1.6 seconds down the field, but faster than the pair of them put together is Giovanni Battiali. Down towards the first curve. This could get incredibly dicey here. It has to be the perfect lap from Christian LeBay to keep Timo De Tosto and Giovanni Battiali at bay here, because you can see there comes Giovanni Battiali onto the back end of Timo De Tosto's Mercedes. But up front, things aren't exactly peaches and cream for LeBay, because that Chevrolet, you can see, is really, really struggling now, but so too is the Merc hanging around in the dirty air. It's giving him not only a bit of aero wash, but it's excessively heating those tyres up, and it's also making the engine a little too hot for comfort here for De Tosto. Down to the Degner curves. This could go any which way on a moment's notice. Into the second part of the Degner. Up round turn 9 we go then. LeBay still leads. It is so unimaginably close between the pair of them. Let's see if we can catch on board with LeBay here as the leading car of 3. We find them here on the exit of turn 11. It is so narrow. Bartoletti off in the background there. Veldkamp stays in 13th. LeBay has got the world's weight on his shoulders here. It was not a walk in the park for a win here in Suzuka, and he still could yet fall away from him here into Spoon. Turns 13, now turn 14. This is one of the closest finishes, if not the closest finish I have ever seen to the line, and the better of 2 exits at Spoon was Christian LeBay on the exit of turn 13, but the Mercedes is in the slipstream. It is only 4 more corners away from the checkered flag. It could be so unimaginably tight here to the finish between these two. Who comes out on top? 130R next, then to the Casio Triangle. I can barely hold my words together. Down towards the Casio Triangle, LeBay from De Tosto, from Battiali on the closest finish we have ever seen here in TRTN history. Comes out of round 3 of the Competizione Performance League GT4 Pro-Am, and Christian LeBay by a hair's width to the line takes home the win. What a performance we have seen there, and look at the gap at the exit. Don't mind that gap. That was barely anything between them to the checkered flag. What a podium we are seeing there. All 3 of those drivers blink and you'll miss it. So looking around the rest of that grid, my word. David Tanguay to the line for 4th. Richard Cecil takes home a top 5 with his first drive with Aston Martin. What a debut then. Away from Alpine into greener pastures, quite literally there on the opening straight. Kevin Quain in 6th. Byron Forrest takes home 7th. Carl Martel on his way to the line here for 8th position. Graham Green not too far away for 9th. But what a last lap dash, decided by 0.2 of a second. All three of those podium sitting drivers within 1 second of one another. Graham Green to the line for 9th. Liam Bello secures a last ditch effort there, top 10. A good turnaround despite the penalties. Actually, that could be because someone left the session. Now, we did actually put the warning out not to do that. We'll get the final reading of the results in a moment's time then. But good lord, have a look at that podium there. Lebay from De Tosto from Badiali on the single greatest lap of racing to the line I have ever seen. Make no mistake of that. That is going to take a lot for a league to match some of the magic we've had here in the very early hours of the morning. It's 3 in the morning here, and I would not miss the opportunity for the world. We just wait here for Christophe Dupois to the line at the moment. Shows that he's 15th. We did see a few drivers leave, though, right at the very end, so we'll just wait to see what the final standings are looking like. Right now, as it stands, though, Christian Lebay wins in Suzuka, his 4th race win in a row this season, and one of his closest fought for. Timo de Tosto second by 0.2 of a second. All three of our podium sitters inside a second of one another. Giovanni Battiali with the fastest lap and within a second there. And then you can see the final results. David Tanguay in 4th, Richard Cecil in 5th, Kevin Quain in 6th, Byron Forrest 7th, Carl Martel 8th, Graham Green 9th, Liam Bello 10th, and then Clinton Bourne in 11th, so it was a top 10 for Bello. Alex Albert in 12th, Andrew Veldkamp 13th, Fabiano Bartoletti in 14th, John Prine 15th, Christophe Dupois 16th, and Gabriel Gaudreau 17th. A reluctant DNF after that disconnect for Anthony Valorio. But if that was any an indication, that start that he had right before his disconnect, if he carries some of that, even an ounce of that momentum into Donington, we could be seeing another race winner on that chart. But it was very close today, but no cigar for Timo de Tosto, because Christian Lebay on his 4th in a row here. Now, that was a much different story to what we've seen in the last couple of races. That was no walk in the park, and that's precisely how we like it there. All three of your podium sitters, just to reiterate that point, because it blows me away just saying that, all three of your podium sitters finished within a second of the leading car. Well, obviously, Lebay counts because he's the leading car, but you know what I mean. It's the fact that all three of the podium cars, it's literally blink and you'll miss it to the line there. That was unbelievable. I throw this term around a lot, but that was absolute cinema. Unmistakably, unequivocally cinema. No mistake of it. What a race then today from us. Well, from these fantastic gentlemen here on this grid. And what a race to watch for us here at home. Very well done then to Christian Lebay, and that was a very hard fought win. He had to fight from 3rd to 1st for that. I would definitely say unconditional driver of the day for the drive we saw today from Giovanni Battiali. That was above and beyond the call of duty for the Italian today. Fantastic stuff. So that's the end of the road here for round 3 of the championship. You'll be joining us next time here on the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America series from Donington Park for another double stint 30-minute racing session. That's 2 races for the price of 1 at round 4 on September 9th. That'll be September 10th for our European viewers at home. If you're joining us next, we'll be at the... I want to take a look here on the calendar because I'm not so great with remembering... but we are with the Solo Multi-Class Endurance this coming Saturday. I also want to point out that we are looking to, and I'm pretty sure we're almost 99% of the way here secured for the broadcast of round 2 of the HCCL GT4 Challenge. Of course, we covered round 1 from Monza last Saturday, and it looks like we could be in for double trouble. Our next event nearest to us will be the season premiere for season 9 of VSR Phoenix. They're heading to Porsche Cups this season, and we'll be doing a double stint round from the Brands Hatch circuit in only actually a few hours from now, actually less than a day. So no rest for the wicked here on TRTN. What a race, though, here in Competizione Performance League. A very big thank you to the drivers for showing up. A very big thank you to our sponsors, Malois Transport and AssurAction Transport Expert. Wouldn't be possible to bring you these performances without their sponsorship. They have been behind us every step of the way here in the Competizione Performance League, and they have been fantastic to work alongside. And really, what a treat, then, that we were able to broadcast for such fantastic spectacles of racing as this. That's all from us here on TRTN. a very good rest of your evening or morning, for that matter, for the European viewers at home. I know there are a few of you. And take care, good night or good morning.